Hello everyone, Anna from Savvy Cat Realty here today to talk to you about cost of living in Portugal. And today I am going to have my Savvy representatives join me so we are able to discuss the differences between different areas in Portugal and how that affects the cost of living. So now we're going into the next topic, that is the cost of extras. So going out for food, your pets that mine were expelled because they were fighting in the background just before I started, so they were expelled for the room. So veterinary and transports and all of those things. So for me, I'm kind of a foodie, so I like to go into nice restaurants, and I sometimes spend quite a bit. But I think that it depends a lot. If you are willing to go to what we call here the Tasca, so that's the older, cheap places that are very much local oriented. In places more touristic like the Algarve, is much more harder. It's much harder to find one, but in here in Caldus and even in Porto, you are able to get meals under 10 euros. If you go to the nicer restaurants, I think that a common range is 15 to 20 for normal restaurants, and then the nicer ones are often between 20 and 30. Over 30 is very expensive. So I think that's more or less the case in most places. In very touristic places like the Algarve, it's very common to find the over 30 ones.
Also, here in this area, it's very common to see most of restaurants having the plate of the day during the week. So it's even easy to find cheaper meals during the week for at least for lunchtime. Normally they don't have it for dinner, but for lunchtime it's around 450 euros, so quite cheap. Yeah.
Yes, you can get meals quite cheaply in the smaller towns mostly. And bigger towns, it's much harder. It's very hard to find under 10.
You can still find them, but it's you will always be like a little bit scared to catch something.
You can still find
or
it
if you
Porto,
go in
but
the outskirts.
in Lisbon it's impossible.
Yeah. Or if you do takeaway, you can find have a restaurant meal for less, but yeah, it's really difficult to find one. And other than if you go to eat in Lisbon, or go get a drink with your pals, or anything like this, or a coffee, like we Portuguese love to go to coffee with friends after work and get together and sit outside and talk a lot of time and drinking as well. But if you do that here in Lisbon, it's kind of almost a luxury for you, because your budget goes up really fast. So you need to be mindful of all the extra how do you say, gatherings that you make. It's almost a gym pass on its own, or something like that. Yeah, and also gym, for example, it's really expensive here in Lisbon, even if you have a lot of them. And I don't know the range of prices, but they are not different. I guess like you can find for 30 euros, if I'm not mistaken. One lesser than that, I don't know. And other things, but it's a nightmare. So really expensive. I hope my cat never gets ill, because I don't know what I'm going to do in that case. I saw that Arturus make a question about tenants, landlords, and pets. I will answer it a little bit later, but we also will have a blog on this topic next week, so you can also check that out in our website. A blog article and other expenses, health expenses like psychologist or dancing or something like that. It's difficult to find a subscription for less than 30-40 euros per month. So yeah, you have to choose which one: being healthy, making exercise, going out with my friends. So yeah, definitely you cannot have them all. Like,
unless you have a budget for that.
Yeah, yeah, you have to be really, really mindful because you can really easily go over your budget. Yeah. So this is Lisbon life. Welcome.
Comparing, for example, Lisbon to Porto. In Porto, about restaurants, you can expect if it is a small restaurant with the daily meal, it can start on 5-6 euros till the 8. For 8 euros or 8.5 euros, you already eat a very, very good francesinha that will let you full, for example. And it's always a good idea.
For 1 week.
Yeah, so for 10 euros you can eat a very tasty francesinha and 2 beers. It's set.
And the
For
portions
example,
are really big. Yeah.
yeah, I'm saying for you to be full. So the francesinha and potatoes and the beer.
Beer
I would
is
say that
important.
that's very important. So I would say that for if you go out, 2 people restaurant, there doesn't need to be a very cheap one, but you can make a meal for 2 people for about 25 euros, and you already are including the wine. You can always go to more expensive places for sure, but we prefer the smaller places, the traditional ones, where you can still eat good and cheap, and
Big
without
portions.
without left their kidney or something. General expenses. I'm always talking about beer because I found that beer is a really good comparison point for different people in different parts of the world. For example, a single beer in any place in Porto would cost you about €1.20. But if you are talking about touristic areas, for example, Ribeira do Porto, you will pay €2.50 for the same beer. So it will depend on the place that you are. For example, dentists and Porto cost about 40 to 50 euros for the consultation. A gym that gives you full access at any hour will cost you around 50 euros. If you go to that more cheap ones with the tight schedule that you don't have full access, you have times a day that you can go in. It can go to 30 euros around that. And yeah, what more things? Gasoline, it's becoming
Yes,
Oh
we
God.
are
No.
It's becoming
Oh
much
my
expensive.
God.
It's being crazy.
Yeah.
It would be a nice amount of your income that goes to fuel.
We're having
I can't even say how much it. Yeah.
right now. Yeah.
It will depend on your vehicle, and it depends how much traffic you take to go to work.
Yeah, but
It's
at
not
the moment,
comparable, but
diesel is something like 1.60
Hmm.
per liter.
yeah. But for example, the gasoline 95 already passed the 1.7 euros per liter. It's insanely high for us, and yeah, it doesn't matter. For
I like
example,
your question, Yolanda.
for example, for transportation in Porto, you beginning in I would say 30 to 40 euros, you already have the full pass for that covers the entire city, for example. So I don't think that the cost of living in Porto is so so inflated that
Yeah, I definitely would say that
2 or
Porto,
3 euros
Yeah.
years.
I would say that Porto is much more affordable than Lisbon still.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, but
Not even.
comparing Porto to Lisbon, 50 euros a month in your bank account is a huge difference. 50 euros they give for more things here.
Yeah, okay, so now answering the questions, do restaurants offer vegetarian, vegan meals options or not
Yeah.
really? It's very common now, more and more common, that restaurants offer that options.
At least one or two offers.
Especially nicer restaurants will tell you on the menus what vegetarian or not, so you usually have options. When you go to the Tascas, so the cheap local ones, not so much, but the regular ones, yes, you do always have options, even on the shopping mall kind of fast food places. There is always kind of options for vegan and vegetarian food too. And now going back to Yolanda questions, we have which I very much like. We were not talking about cocktails because we were mostly talking about meals. But you definitely have a very big offer on bars and cocktail drinks. I'm actually not much of a beer or a wine drinker myself, so I do like your question. But yes, you definitely won't have a problem finding cocktails and so on. They usually start from 4.5 euros and go up depending on the kind of place you are in.
Yeah,
the most common price is 6 to 7.
Yeah, come to the Algarve. There's an endless list of cocktails here.
Equally expensive.
Yeah. I think we tend to talk more about wine and beer because they are the pride and joy of most Portuguese people and are the cheapest options as well. So,
but we can compare price of the spirits too. For example, I pay €3.60 for an espresso, a cafe, and a big glass of Bushmill, for example. 3.6 euros are. Yeah, it's not that much, but depends on the place.
So 60 cents on the coffee and 3 euros.
3 euros for
the
but I'm talking, for example, this in Rio Tinto, because if you go, for example, to Porto and ask for Bushmills, half of the size that you get here, you will pay 5 euros for it.
Tell us, well, how is it there?
The portions and the prices,
Here, if you're talking about spirits, if you're going to a bar, it will be really easy paying between 5 to 10 euros for a
you give them
cocktail.
the note.
A very, very small glass most of the times.
Yeah, really?
Yes, and it will be really easy to find those kinds of prices because this is all focused to tourism. So people that come here have high income, and people take advantage to it. So locals don't go out often because of that, because it's expensive to go to a bar. With 20 euros, you get like 2, maybe if you're lucky, 3 drinks.
3 drinks.
And if you don't have to pay to enter in the bar.
Yeah, most of the bars don't charge, only in nightclubs. But in bars, the normal it's between 5 to 10 euros for a drink. Of course, speaking of cocktails or spirits, but if you want to have a beer, you'll have to pay at least 2 euros, €2.50 for a beer mug, around 5 euros. So that's the normal prices here. If you're talking about restaurants, they are also expensive. I tend to have difficulty of going to a place and spend, I'll say, in the cheapest ones, around 25 to 30 euros for a meal for 2 persons. That's including just the meal and the drink and maybe a dessert. But don't include the dessert on the price because it will be more expensive.
Yeah.
And I tend to like to go to nice restaurants, so it will be expensive because restaurants here are expensive, mainly in tourist regions. So I live near the old town of Albufeira. So if I go out to the several restaurants that are there, they are expensive. So the normal, it will be between 20 to 25 euros per person, and it will depend on what you will eat. This previous week I went to a nice seafood place, and for 2 persons I paid almost 80 euros for a meal for 2. So you will see it's expensive to eat out here.
And seafood is really expensive as well.
Yeah.
Everywhere here. So.
And here, because it's close to the sea, it's more affordable, because in other locations that you don't have it, I'm from Lisbon, and if I eat the same things, I will pay between 100 to 150 euros. So it's still expensive for Portuguese people, but it's affordable for this price here.
Yes, but I do notice that I got a lot when I go to the Algarve. And last time I was there was in June, and I did notice that for the same level of quality, I would pay at least 30 to 40% more for an equivalent restaurant here, for example, in Caldus.
Yes, that's the hard reality here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here in my region, I think we see a lot of difference between prices when you go from the city to the beach. So if you go to a restaurant in the beach or a bar, you also have to pay for the view. That's what we normally say, because like for example, a coffee here in the city, I can pay 60 cents for coffee. If I go to the beach, it can go up to €1 for an espresso. So it's quite a difference, and that goes on to cocktails and also meals. It can be,
but that's the case everywhere. You can also see that
in most cities, yeah.
And in Lisbon too,
yeah.
but in a whole other level.
You can also find cheaper options here. We also have taskas here and meals of the day in restaurants, but it's harder to find. But you can also have a meal for around 10 euros with all included, but it's not as normal as in other locations, like in Porto, for example, which is normal.
Yeah. And you don't have as many local restaurants that work mostly during the week for working force people, because in reality is that 90% of the Algarve operates out of tourism.
Yes, here you have the hard reality that when the high season ends, it's ending now in the end of October. So next month, if I go down the street to the old town of Albufeira, around 70 to 80% of the business will be closed, because they only operate during the high season. So they have to increase the prices during the 6 months that they are open, 6 to 8 months that they are allowed to stay open to survive. So they increase the prices to get by the entire year. So they get the money during the summer months, because during the winter times they don't work. So that's one of the main reasons that prices are so high in the Algarve.
And actually, sorry.
No,
Continue.
it's all right. The local restaurants, those I was saying that are cheaper. They more in the center. They work all year long, because they have their products intended to the locals. So they have to have cheaper values on their products that they are selling to get by the entire year. On the tourist region, it's different.
I was going to say that you actually made a good point in a thing that people usually has a big cultural clash, because in big cities like Porto and Lisbon, you always see everything open at all the times. But if you go in the outskirts or more in the interior, you start to see after 7, 8 p.m. If they are not a restaurant, all the business close really, really early. And if it's a weekend, forget about it. You don't see anything open. everything closes, and and usually most business also close for mealtime. That's a thing that I think it doesn't happen so much on the other countries abroad. Like the service tend to stay always open, but for us, like from midday to 1 p.m., almost everything is closed, depending if you're not in a big city, if you're more in a village or a small city. Or
Usually only the bigger companies stay open all day.
yeah. If it's mealtime and go home time, everything closed. Yeah, really early. And
But I think
weekends as
that
well, so
makes sense, because unless there is a rotating staff that can organize the break time to have a meal,
yeah.
If you need something open on that time, you always have shopping around where those things
Depending
are always open
if
till late hours.
if you are in a smaller
depending on
city
how
or
close the
in a
shopping
village.
are.
No, yeah. Because I live in a medium. I live more my entire life in a medium small city, and there are some. Either you go to the supermarkets, and now they have other services as well that complement the supermarket, but other stores. But before we had those, you had to go to the big cities nearby that are Leiria and Coimbra. And if it's weekend, you have to you would have to plan your day, because you knew that everything would be closed, so you would stay home practically, because there's nothing open unless restaurants and coffees. Like, it's the only thing in pastelerias, bakeries.
Bakeries, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I think we covered more or less all the important things about cost of living. If any of you have any other questions from the viewers, we are happy to answer them. In the meantime, let's discuss whatever Erica has remembered.
Transportation, like bus and train, and that's really important. So here in Lisbon, we have what? Okay. Here I will continue. Sorry, Milda. In Lisbon, you can. They now have upgraded the pass, the transportation pass. So now they are cheaper. So for if you only want to move around the the center of Lisbon, you can pay 30 euros. And if you want to move in the outskirts as well, the price is upgraded a little bit. They can go up to 40-50 euros. It depends how far away you want to go, but that's a monthly pass, so it's quite affordable. And we use it a lot here to move around, especially if we don't have a car, like myself. Either I go by foot or I go by bus, train, whatever I can get, a subway as well. And there are a lot of other options as well. Taxi, it's a little bit expensive. They don't have a good reputation nowadays. They had to fix it because they have more more concurrencia. How do we say?
There's more businesses, so
other offers like competition. Thank you. and you have like Uber or Bolt or other companies like those that are taking. They are more cheaper, and they have more or less more campaigns and more sales, so you can move around. If you're in a hurry and you really need to go by car, you can move around like that as well. And you can control easily your trajectory, so that doesn't happen with a taxi, so it's safer in a way. And but going around, it's you need one of those here, definitely.
Yeah, I
Uh,
have a pet hate for driving in Lisbon because it's crazy to find parking and it's crazy the traffic itself. And it has a thing that if you're not very familiar with the city itself, you get into the wrong lane and you end up on the other side of it, and it's very annoying. So
it's really hectic, and traffic here is a life on its own. Yeah, it's really strange. And traffic hours are like it compared to other places. We don't have half of the people, and it can get even crazier because we don't understand. It's a phenomenon on its own. Like, yeah,
I don't know if
don't
it's
go around
planning,
9
but
and
yes, I went to Lisbon 2 days ago, and I was like, should I take my car?
No.
Maybe not.
Leave it
Yeah,
out.
I'll go by bus.
It's cheaper. It's more or less the same time. If you want
Well,
to
it's
bring
not really. It's actually
something,
about the same price because
Yeah.
my car is pretty decent on consumption, and then it would be just the highway tolls mostly. That's another thing. The highway tolls here are really bad. To go from Porto to Algarve, you pay something like 80 euros in tolls. And to go from Porto to Caldus, it's about 16, 17. From Caldus to Lisbon, it's not that bad. I think it's like 6 or 7. Diana, do you know?
From Caldus to Lisbon,
Yeah.
it's
Cool.
around 8 euros,
Yeah.
8.70.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's about the same price as the bus tickets. But depends. There's a bus that is 8.10. That's the one I took, but there's another one that's a bit more expensive, like 12 or something. So yeah, overall the trip costs about the same if you go by car or not, but you don't have to deal with parking in traffic.
Yeah.
So how have been your experiences with
We have,
traffic? Nuno.
with transports and traffic in Porto. In Porto, in my opinion, if you have a car, you can go everywhere freely. But the coverage of the transportation lines of metro and bus are really good, and they spread outside of the city in a good way too. For you to move to another cities, you can use a bus to do it, train, and I find it that's not that expensive. For example, you can go from Porto to Vila Real. We are talking about taxes of the highways and stuff, right?
Yeah, the transportation costs like for a pass, and if you're driving your own car, just compare.
For example, you go from Porto to Vila Real by bus for 10 euros. You go by car, paying, I would say, 10 euros in fuel and 5 euros in the
tolls.
In the highway. Yeah. For example, we are talking about 100 kilometers. It depends on of your car or of your motorcycle what you spend on fuel for sure. I would say that the clever way to move in a city like Porto would be the motorcycle, because sometimes you can use the bus lines to go through places that otherwise you would have to go around. But in general, you can, for 30, I think it's 30 or 40 euros, the general pass. One gives you access to the bus lines and the other to bus and metro, I think, and it's like 30 or 40 euros. And you can move wherever you want on the public transportation.
In the Algarve, there's a transport problem that João can tell us more about.
Yes, the transportation network here isn't as good as other locations like Lisbon and Porto. For example, subway doesn't exist here, and the only way to get by in a city without having a car or using a private transportation like taxi service or Uber it's to use the bus. But the service itself is good. It's slow. The prices are not high, but the vehicles are quite old, and you can also get by using train, because there's also train service here, but just going from one city to another, because most of train stations here are far away from the city itself. So if you go from one city to another by train, then you have to catch the bus to go to the center. So you end up spending more money than if you have your own car. And because the easiest way to get by here, I don't use the transport network because I own a car. So without a car here, it's hard to go from one place to another in Algarve. It's important here to own a car or a motorcycle, because without that you can go to work on public transportation. But for example, if you enter at 8 a.m., you have to get up like at 6 a.m. to catch the bus at 6:30 to maybe arrive in time at your work, or maybe half an hour before, because it's difficult to find a bus that will have the connection that you want to arrive at your work
they are
in
not
time.
very constant, like in the big cities where
Yeah.
they're
The
like
frequency
every
of
half
them.
hour, 50 minutes,
Yeah,
every half
yeah.
hour. You don't really know where they will show up or if they will show up.
Yeah,
And,
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, if they get on time on places, because here
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
the buses don't.
Sometimes yes, sometimes
Depends.
no. But in big cities, you get frequently buzz every maybe
Yeah.
5-10 minutes. Here it's more like each half an hour, each 45 minutes. But it depends on the location. And during the weeks, yeah, you have more service because people are working. Normally during the weeks, it's the weekends, it's the day off. But it's important to own a car here. In terms of cost of, if you own a car, of fuel, here in the Algarve, it's one of the most expensive areas in the country. The prices are often inflated compared even to the big cities. I have a diesel car, and today I went to the gas station and paid €1.80 per liter of diesel.
Jesus.
So,
Yeah.
and diesel is cheaper than gasoline. So gasoline here, it's coming close to €2 per liter, which is insane. And that's the hard reality at the moment.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know it was that bad. Yeah.
Of course, you can find it cheaper because you have the type of fuel that is cheaper and the one that is more expensive, because you will pay the additives that makes your car go a few extra miles, which I use that because it's better for your car. But you can find the diesel of for 1 liter for around €1.60. But the normal, it's between €1.60 to €1.80 for diesel, and for gasoline it's between $1.70 per liter to $1.90, more or less.
Yeah. Here in Caldus, the transport network isn't the best. You have good bus connections, but the train line is really bad. And you also have good connections when it comes to highways and so on. But Diana can tell us a bit more about.
Yeah, on my experience, me living here in Caldus, I don't use car that much. I normally actually say that I worry about having my car stopped in the garage because I don't use it on a weekly basis, only for the weekends. And because of the city, it's quite plain, so you can walk mainly everywhere. with no difficulty. And the public transport is, like Anna said, we do have a good system here, especially on the internal system. The buses, those small buses that go around the city, they work quite well, and the average price for a pass, it's around 20-25 euros. So it can take you almost everywhere, so it's not that expensive. A bus to Lisbon, it's around 870, and I know that to Porto it's around 19 euros. So it's and you have a chance to go on a bus that it's in very good conditions and also have Wi-Fi, so you can go pretty comfortable in the bus. And train station, you do have a train station, but the line doesn't go up to the north, either south. It only goes to I think Lisbon, not quite sure.
It's a secondary line, so it's really slow. It goes to Coimbra, and then it goes to the south, but I don't think it quite reaches Lisbon. But I definitely don't really recommend getting the train, because it's one of those that stops everywhere, and it takes forever to get anywhere.
Yeah,
original one. Yeah.
And Milde is asking how
it's faster and affordable.
Maybe you need to repeat, Anna.
Milde is asking here, is there public transportation from Caldus to the beach?
Well, sometimes we use train, depending on the location. I can, for example, go from Caldus to São Martinho do Porto, which is a very well-known beach with the seashell shape. And it's, if you're willing to go like 1 hour, I don't know if it takes 40 minutes, around 40 minutes travel to the beach, but you can go by train and by bus. It takes a bit longer, and normally I say to our clients that if you're planning on coming to the city and making your day-to-day basis here, you can easily go without a car, but then you'll find the need of having a car in the future because you want to go and explore. And the proximity to the beach, it's really close, so you want to go to the beach, you'll definitely need a car for that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Yolanda was asking earlier. Can one explore Portugal without a car? You can, however, it's a lot more inconvenient because you will be subject to the time schedules and availability of the public transportation. And they are sometimes not very reliable, especially on small locations. It's very easy to go to the medium and bigger sized cities that the transport networks are usually quite good. But if you want to go to smaller locations, it's much better to have a car.
Yeah.
And we had also another question here. Yeah. If we need to get the neighbor's permission to buy a dog or a cat. No, not at all. The neighbors have nothing to do with it. The only thing that can interfere is if there are any condominium rules about not having pets. However, that is not very common, but landlords can decline renting based on pets that you may have. They are usually much more wary of dogs than of cats, though.
Yeah, and it can be a bit of an obstacle. Especially here in Lisbon as well, because if it's an apartment, they usually don't approve of pets, but because nowadays we are having more younger landlords, they are more empathic towards pets. It's
usually the problem with the landlords and pets is that often they've had bad experiences with damages caused by pets and not covered by the tenant, and then they get burnt and they stop wanting to rent to people that have pets. So that is often the case when people refuse pets. But once again, it's on a case-by-case basis, and it's mostly a thing of creating trust. And the way that we find around it is to, when there's this kind of situations, we try to negotiate with the owner of the apartment. There's a safety deposit for the pet situation itself, so they feel a bit more comfortable that the tenant is not just going to leave them with damage caused by pets.
Yeah, and actually, this is a thing that it's being discussed in the government. They try to. It's the second time they are trying to pass a bill on it to be illegal to discriminate against people, families with pets, tenants with pets. So, if that bill is passed, landlords cannot make an ad or refuse a tenant because they have a pet.
Well, yes, they cannot officially refuse because of that reason, but it's your property and you can't choose who you put there. So it's going to be a bit hard to apply that. It will mainly apply, for example, if people get a pet later, they cannot be penalized for that.
Yeah, but we will see what that leads to. And the only thing that people need to be more mindful about regarding neighbors is the noise. So you need to know and be aware what kind of noise that your pet makes, and especially when you're absent. So that can lead to some problems. But usually, if a neighbor makes a complaint, I think you will only be obligated to pay a fine and take your pet to a trainer until it learns to be more quiet. So yeah, if you're mindful of that, usually you don't have a problem. Yeah.
And
like I said before, we will have an article on that on our blog, so go check that out.
Yeah, we do have a lot of information on our website and blog about many of the things that we discussed. We also have about the healthcare and visas and all kinds of useful things for people that are planning to our country. And we finally have a YouTube channel that the videos that we do here will be updated weekly in order to have all the information there. But going back to the comments, Kel was asking if how they charge for cars on toll roads. So what happens here is it's basically treated the same way as a normal car, as local car. The difference is we have here the Via Verde system, and in order to use the Via Verde system, you have to have the Via Verde device. So if you go buy the Via Verde without having Via Verde, you will receive a ticket and for that, and it can be really bad. They are very good at inflating the tickets here in Portugal. It's a special government skill. They turn like €5 into 500, so be very careful about that. But if you do have the device, it's treated exactly like any other car. If you don't have the device, you have to go through the manual porting, so you have to pay there. And where the cancels are, and it just opens and closes. You cannot go through the high-speed parts. The electronic tolls, you can go to a post office or a coffee shop. I don't know, a place, a business place.
You can in those electronic tools that you don't have the place to stop and pay. You can pay them in the post office, or you can often buy a card in the gas station on the highway, where you can put your license plate, and then you buy a card of a certain amount, and that will discount from that card. So that's an easy way for those that don't have the device to pay, because the thing with the post office, you pass on the tools and it's not available instantly to pay. Sometimes only after a couple of days it's available, but then it's only available like for a week to pay. So if you don't pay attention, you will end up paying a fine in the end. So it's the easiest way is to get the device. or just buy this card at the gas station and then it's taken care of.
Yes. And Joe was also asking about the speed cameras on highways. They're not very common, but now they recently, like, I don't know, 2-3 years installed the speed camera system on highways. They do need to notify you. So when you see it's a sign, kind of
There's
like a
always the
motorcycle,
signs.
a car, and a truck, and then a kind of a Wi-Fi signal, and that means radar. When you see that sign,
Yes.
like a few meters ahead, there will be a gray box, and
Perfect
that's a
sign.
radar. So that's
Yes.
basically it.
I can talk about the north of the country. Here in the north, there are not so many radars like that one, but when they exist, they are obligated. They have to be identified. It's mandatory. So that's how Anna says. You can see that they are there, or with time you automatically will take
Will
your
learn.
foot out of
Yeah.
the gas. Yeah. But in general, in the north, no.
And if you move around with apps like Waze or Google Maps, they usually also share where those are. So even if you missed out on the traffic sign, other drivers will tell you where those are. So yeah, you can use one of those if you're afraid to miss one radar.
Yeah.
How do you know those things?
And Yolanda is asking about will an American iPhone work with any of the cell phones companies here in Portugal? It should. Here we have a thing that if you buy a phone through a specific company, they may block it to that company. I don't know if that happens in America, but unless it is
Yolanda.
blocked in a similar situation to this, it should work with any card from any country.
If
Yeah.
your iPhone is locked to
A certain
service
provider.
you
A
just
service.
have to give the proof of the buy. Where is the email of the smartphone? You go to an Apple store and they will unlock it.
Yeah. So I think we more or less covered anything, and we've been here for like an hour and a half, especially considering the delay. So it's 9:12 p.m. here, and I think everyone is hungry, especially after we talked so much about food. So
And drink.
I'm going
And
to
it's
free
fine,
everyone. And I'm glad you all enjoyed the information. It will be available on the video tab here on Facebook, and it will eventually be put on YouTube too. And any suggestions for future lives with useful information, we are always happy to hear them. And see you guys next Friday.
Bye bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye
Go
bye.
Finns,
Hope you have enjoyed.
Auf Insmana.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Go Finns,
Have a
man.
good weekend. Bye.
Bye. Deixa-se